Test, test. Hello. Anybody here yet? How the heck do I zoom out? Hello. Hey, cowboy. How's the audio? How am I sounding? Is everything good? Excellent. Okay, I'm going to go and share out the link. I'm going to start the show in about 8 minutes. Oh, thanks, man. I'm glad people stuck around. I'm back. I'm back in the fold. Hold on, I'm sharing this out to some other groups. All right, let me get set up. Let me get my stuff over here, and then I can kind of get going. Back in a few. Hey, James. Going live in about 5 minutes. Thanks for popping in. All right. So I just splashed it out there to the world, and I suppose I'll start. Let me bring the camera in here. Yo, Ben Monette. Nice. Okay, here we are. Very nice. All right, so welcome to my show tonight. I'm not going to start as usual until really for another 10 minutes or so because it takes that long for everyone to get kind of signed in and find their way here. So until then, I got some, I just do my usual chit chatting. I'll kind of talk about what I'm going to be doing tonight. I've got these 4 drop pods, which are my tactical squad drop pods for my tournament this weekend coming up. It's Battle for Salvation. I haven't played in this tournament since 2013. It's been 3 years since I've been there with all the funny business that happened over the last several years in my world. So, yeah, so I'm excited to actually be playing again. And what I've got here is my Dreadnought drop pod list. And these 4 pods are assigned to the 4 tactical squads that are here. And um, basically, I've thrown this list together like in a matter of 8 days. I decided officially to go to this tournament like last weekend, but I wasn't really excited about a list. And then I found a story online about a guy that had gone undefeated at the ATC Championships using a Dreadnought drop pod list. And I was kind of inspired to revisit my old Dreadnought drop pod list, which I started way, way back in the day in about 2011 or 10 or so, long ago. And these pods are part of that list. And so there's a small pile of Dreadnoughts over here that were all part of that list as well. I'm not going to mess with the camera. I'll show them after. So the lists, but however, at that time, the game changed dramatically with a new edition that came out right after I assembled the models and got the list ready. And it pretty much destroyed the viability of the list. So it got shelved, but now it's back. The list is back, the Dreadnoughts. So here we are. I was able to pull it out, pull out the models and kind of get going again with this list I had created. I had to start all new with the infantry because they changed the rules. Previously, my list had assault squads. For troops, which are no longer troops anymore in the Blood Angels Codex. So I had to go for tactical squads instead. A little more pricey, a little less useful, but them's the breaks. So here's the Dreadnoughts that I have. These guys I just pulled out of cold storage. I ordered some new ones to paint up for this event, but they just haven't arrived. So I'm just doing what I can with what I have here. Basically, these are all the list back in the day. And over the years, I've kind of refreshed and recycled. This guy, he was red, and I repainted him as a Lamenter's Dreadnought. And some of these guys just got no love at all. I base coated, actually all of them, really. Except for him, he's old, from way back in the day. I did the base coating, and that's about it. I didn't do really any highlighting at all yet, and I'm really not going to have time to highlight these models. This weekend is like a tester for what I think I want to do with this list. If I'm gonna get serious about it or not, we'll see what happens. Let me check the chat real quick. Questions, questions, questions. Let me scroll back up again. Okay. Ben Monette, my friend, long time friend. Ben Monette, you see him in the chat making fun of me. I've known this guy since kindergarten. We've been best friends, so it's a long, long time. All right, so can you take dreads in a standard pods in 40K? Well, it all depends. You can really do anything, really. It all depends on the rules you're playing with, and yes, you can. However, I'm actually going to be proxying my pods. These, here's one of my dread pods. Looks the same as the other ones. But I'm going to be proxying them as Lucius pattern drop pods for all the Dreadknots, which are Forge World models, which I don't have yet. I already got permission with the tournament organizer to proxy these pods as Lucius pods. Lucius pods are bigger and wider. They actually fit the Dread inside. These don't. So, yes, you could, but scrolling down. Thanks, James. The Lamenters, yeah, they're I sold them to pay off debt. This is the last sole survivor of the army. My favorite model of all of them, by the way. I don't know if I'll ever sell him. Maybe, if the price is right. Want to buy him? I got to redo his wiring and his battery. I embedded the battery inside the base and to light him up, and now the battery's dead. Whoops. So anyway, he's just on loan from the Lamenters for this drop pod army. People are slowly trickling in. It takes usually like 20 minutes before we get up to a decent number. I'm hoping to get over 20 today, trying to get up there. So I don't want to start my demonstration yet until I've got at least, the people that usually want to come in and see. So let me just move some stuff out of the way again. Get all these dreads out the way. Move, move, move. I guess we're going to start if you're coming in late. Yeah. So I sold the Lamenters. I really, really regretted it. I lamented it. I was very sad to see them go, and but the money was there, and I needed to pay off a credit card, so off they went. Them's the breaks. I can always paint more, eh? So here's what I'm doing. Quick and easy hazard lines on a Space Marine drop pod. And by hazard lines, I of course mean the lines that are up here on the sides of the hatch. And you see these things typically like on the edges of doorways, like in the movie Aliens. You can see the hazard lines on the airlock door. And, they're just a nice little touch, and you always see them on the GW models on the website. And, you see people paint them on their models, though, and they're a little sketchy at best. Crooked, not uniform. And there's a real simple way of doing this. And I wish I had thought about it with my old drop pod army, because I did them all with a ruler by hand. And there's an even easier way, which I'm going to show you in just a few minutes. I'm gonna do also tomorrow during the day a separate video of this and upload it to YouTube all by itself, as well as doing the water slide transfers, which I've been doing. I've been playing around with different ways of doing the water slides, and for example, because like sometimes here's the problem: like you use a water slide transfer, and it gets glossy and shiny, and it's hard to hide the shininess. So on this door, I sprayed it with gloss varnish to try and embed the transfer into the varnish. And then I'm going to spray it with satin varnish or a matte varnish to dull it back down afterwards. So I'll see how that goes. Some of these other pods, the transfer came out okay, but still it's a little shiny, and I don't like that look on my models. My friend John Steining is the master of transfers. They seriously look like they're just painted on. I don't know how he does it. And I usually like to paint my decals and my insignias, but I just don't have the time. to do that. Plus, I do like the nice cleanness of the transfer. Um, so let's get back to what I was doing here. I get oh, my scissors. I get distracted pretty easy. I'll talk about transfers in a bit. The nids are on the shelf for now because like a kid in a candy shop, I got excited about doing this drop pod list. But honestly, there's no way I was gonna have the nids ready for Battle for Salvation, which is this weekend, and probably not ready for Mechanicon. While I can have this drop pod list ready to go by that time. So the nids are on hold. I'll get back to them later. I'll talk about Lamia Medium. I'll talk about, I don't know what Lamia Medium exactly is, but I'll talk about how I do the transfers in a bit. And I'm open to suggestions too, by the way, on how to do transfers. So here we go. How to do the hazard lines on a drop pod. I've got this list has 11 drop pods, 7 dreadnoughts, and 4 tactical squads, and 7 of them are going to be Lucius pattern pods. They're big. They're like the size of footballs, and so they really got to stand out. And I'm putting some extra care right now into these 4 tactical pods because they are going to be part of the actual army once I get all the models. So these 4 pods, I'm not so concerned about the other dreadnought pods that I'm using for this weekend because they're only going to get used this weekend. Then they're just going to go back in storage because by then I'll have the Lucius pods. I need some water. Let me grab my water. 1 second. I have a sore throat. All right, let's go. So first of all, I got myself some half-inch masking tape, and this is going to be the basis of how I do the lines. And what I'm going to do is just cut myself, not cut myself, but cut a bunch of inch-long pieces of half-inch masking tape. These scissors are like from 1965, and they don't like cutting. Come on. Why do you do this to me? Okay, let me get a couple more pieces cut. Doesn't matter how straight the cut is, you just need a half-inch piece or an inch-long piece. Alright, so, or whatever. So, ready for this? What you do is, let me zoom in. Gotta find the view. Okay, here we are. So what you do is you basically are going to put this down on the edge of the pod where you're going to be painting. You want the edge of the tape flush with the end of the pod here. Right up here on the end. So you flush it up there. And then you want the tape to be perpendicular to the side of the pod. You want a 90-degree angle there. So flush it up against the tip of the door. Then put it flat against the side. And you want it to be a 90-degree angle. Kind of hard to see, and it probably won't look 90 degrees, but if I put a square up here, you would see that I do have as close to a square as possible. It's not that big a deal. This first piece is going to set the tone for all the pieces thereafter. So it doesn't really matter so much right here exactly if it's straight, because everything else is going to line up with it. So then you put down just more pieces right up against that first piece you put down, and then crease it up against the edge. My fingers are a little greasy from eating my dinner. And if you're doing it right, the tape will line up with the armor plating of the door perfectly. So you won't have to deal much with the armor plating being misaligned when you paint these things. Not getting too crazy about this. Again, I'm just lining up each piece of tape right up tight against the previous piece and smoothing them down. Then, here we go. Here comes the magic. You just pull off, leave the end piece, pull off every other piece going down, leaving you with your 4 perfectly aligned pieces of tape. Then I go with my paint. I'm using Avalanche Sunset. And for those of you that like to yell at me for painting out of the pot, I've actually pre-mixed this with some medium to thin it a bit. So and it's still chunky in there, but you know, it is what it is. So yes, this paint inside this pot has been mixed with medium, and then you just paint using the Avalanche Sunset right over your lines. I always let it I paint more opaque at the top edge of the line, and I let it kind of diffuse as it goes down. My goal today is to finish the striping on these 4 pods. I have like 1 whole pod plus like 2 doors on this pod. And you can see that this paint is actually way more watery than usual foundation paint. And you can see that I'm letting the top edge kind of grab the paint off my brush. And here it just kind of naturally fades down. We'll let that dry. Let me get my water to wash my brush. If you're just tuning in, I am showing how I do my hazard lines on a drop pod, and I'll also be talking about water slide transfers. So I'm going to let that chill for a bit because I'm going to come back and do some yellow on it in a second, and I'll put it aside. You'll see the magic happen in a second. Oh, and I'll do a transfer. Let me get the transfer stuff over here. Okay, so on these pods, I've already got a transfer up there on one of them. I'm going to put a transfer right here. Maybe I'll skip one. Put one right here. I'm going to put the Blood Angel symbol. If you're saying stuff in the chat and I'm not answering, I'm sorry. I'm very focused on my job at hand. So first job is I cut the transfer from the sheet using my X-Acto blade. I cut my little Blood Angel symbol. I'm going to put that in my water bowl here and just let it kind of chill in there for a bit. And that's going to, see it here, that's going to soften it up and get it off the transfer sheet. While that's happening, I'm going to use this product called Micro Set and Micro Sol. These are designed to help transfers adhere to models and become part of it. Don't really know how they work. I suppose they kind of work to dissolve the sheet that the transfer is on, leaving behind the color only. But I don't really know how all that works, if at all. Because it's supposed to help you put transfers on rounded models or models with texture, but I'm putting it on a flat surface, so I don't really know if I even need this transfer stuff, this solvent. But I'm just using it to show you. Oh, let me zoom out a bit, so I don't have to keep worrying about that. So I'm just liberally placing the micro set onto the surface that I'm going to put my transfer. I don't know if this stuff is poisonous or not, so I am going to wash my brush very thoroughly. Yeah, 1/2 inch tape. 1/2 inch masking tape. And Here we go. I'm going to go and just go ahead and put the transfer on now. I'll use my X-Acto blade to kind of pull it out of my little dish. I'll take my brush, my trusty, this is my size 2 Windsor or Reaper Kolinsky Sable. And really what I just do is I kind of just grab the transfer off the sheet with the brush. If you're careful, it won't wrap up. And then I'm going to place it right into position on the solvent. Let me turn it around. You can see, can you see it's a little crooked, right? You can see it's a little crooked. So now I'm going to just use the tip of the brush to tease it straight. No comments out of you, Monette. And that was pretty perfect. And it looks from this point that it's exactly where I want it. And here's where I don't really know if I even need the microsol. You're supposed to put the transfer on, then you dab it with some more micro set on top of the transfer. Be careful because it's going to slide around. And then you can use the brush to just tease it to where you want it. Voila. I'm going to come back to this in a second. I'll let that set for a while. I'm good. I'm happy with that. I'll come back and do that second step. But let me go back to my my drop pod door. So this guy has been drying to the point where it's ready for the next step, which is going to be a layer of flash kits. Where's my yellow? I forget whether it's Uriel or flash kits. I had them labeled as number 1 and 2 to show which one to use first. And the label has since fallen off. And again, I'm painting from my little dipper pot here, but I did pre-mix it with some medium to help thin it out. All of my paints, basically at this point, well, for the most part, I've prepped them in their pots to be a little bit more viscous. A little dab will do ya on the tip of your brush. And I'm going to just drag that color across the very top. And it's going to do a nice little blend. I'm not sure if you can see it very well. Quick and easy. Let me check the chat here. Yeah, so the GWA is to Michael Barton is saying that the GWA is a layer of hard coat, which is the gloss, the paint on gloss medium. Let it dry, then apply a transfer to that, then seal it with a Lamian medium, which is a matte finish, which is essentially what I'm doing here. All right, so basically it's done. I'm just going to pull off the tape. Voila. My next step, I'm using Andrea Color black paint set. This is part of their 6-color set to paint black, and this is number 4. So, shoot, I'll get them after. It's kind of a grayish. That's okay. And I'm gonna use this to paint the black areas of the hazard stripes, because of course some of the paint kind of seeps through the tape. Steady hand helps here. I'm going to put a black wash over this to bring the darkness back to it. This is actually going to become the highlight once I've washed it, which is fine. And there you go. Hazard lines. And let me show you how they look when they're completely done. Where's pod 1? There's pod 1. So this pod comes down, boom, ejects the pod doors, boom, 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 and you can see the painted hazard lines. I've painted the inside with metallic paint, then I washed it with my Deity's Magic ink. And I'm going to give this a nice spray of gloss varnish and then a spray of matte varnish to finish it up. And that what maybe I mean I still have a lot of highlight this to bring this up to my standard. I have a lot of highlighting to do on it as well, but for now it's going to be this is it. The doors, closing. See the one. Boom! Drop pod ready. Oh, I had to do the transfer on him. Am I using the crazy drop pod FAQ at the tournament? What's the crazy drop pod FAQ? Is it drop pod FAQ? What is it? I don't know. I don't know. Hold on. Let me Google here. Drop pod FAQ. June 9th. June 8th. I'm looking to see what the drop pod FAQ is. I don't know. I'm looking for a drop pod FAQ, sorry. Okay, do space between drop pods count as solid walls that block line of sight? It depends on the model, how it's constructed. I guess you could leave the doors shut, like glue them shut, and there it is. Are drop pod doors ignored for game purposes once deployed? No, they're part of the model. Can the occupants of the drop pod move after it lands and opens its hatches? Have the occupants disembarked from a transport and therefore can move as if they had arrived from deep strike and therefore cannot? When a drop pod lands, the units inside must disembark. The movement and the subsequent restrictions of the units are described under placing disembark models and disembarkation restrictions in the 40k rules. Do the units in a deep striking drop pod count as deep striking? Yes. Can centurions ride in drop pods? What's a centurion? What happens if a drop pod scatters partly off the board? That doesn't matter. Why can't I have a unit of 3 dreadnoughts and all in drop pods as one choice for the Force Org chart? Yeah, I didn't see anything there that was earth-shattering. Let me go back and read the chat now. Oh my god, people are dropping out of the chat here. Hello?